I shouldn't have been there. Every fiber of my body screamed at me to turn and run, to grab my children and vanish before anyone recognized me. But my legs wouldn't obey. I was frozen by the side doors of the great hall, holding the warm little hands of Ian and Isaac as I watched the man I loved about to marry someone else. The priest asked the question. Zahir should have answered. He should have said, "I do," and sealed both their fates. But instead, he looked out at the crowd. An empty, bored glance, like someone merely fulfilling a protocol. Then his eyes found mine. Time stopped. I saw the exact moment he recognized me. I saw the shock cross that face I knew so well, his brown eyes widening, his entire body stiffening as if he'd been shot. And then he looked down, at Ian, with his dark curls and golden eyes, at Isaac, a perfect copy of his brother, clutching my skirt with tiny fingers. 2.5-year-old boys who were the spitting image of the king standing at the altar. Zahir's eyes shifted from brown to liquid gold, not from anger, from recognition, from something that seemed impossible. He abandoned the bride. He descended the altar steps one by one, ignoring the scandalized murmurs, ignoring the cameras, ignoring everything that wasn't me, and the 2 small living proofs that the doctors had been wrong. When he stopped before us, his face was a mask of emotions I couldn't decipher. Pain, hope, disbelief, all mixed into an expression that made me want to cry and run at the same time. He fell to his knees. Alpha King Zahir Moonstone, ruler of Valeward, the most powerful man in the kingdom, dropped to his knees on the marble floor before 2 little boys who had no idea who he was. "Are they?" His voice was a strangled whisper. I swallowed my tears. "Yours." If you want to know how we arrived at that moment, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Come with me. This story is mine, but now it's yours too. To understand that day, you need to know the invisible woman I was before. The cleaner who should never have looked a king in the eye. The Valeward Palace was exactly as the magazines showed. Towers of glass and steel rose against the blue sky, reflecting the morning sun in patterns that hurt the eyes. Perfectly symmetrical gardens stretched in every direction, every shrub trimmed with millimeter precision, every fountain spurting crystal water at calculated rhythms. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. I tightened the strap of my cheap bag and followed the group of new staff through the side gate. There were 12 of us in total, all wearing identical gray uniforms, all with our eyes downcast and shoulders hunched. The supervisor, a middle-aged beta woman with a face carved from stone, guided us through the service corridors like a shepherd leading sheep. "Rule number 1, she said without looking back. "Invisibility is survival. You do not exist. If a member of the royal family passes, you turn to the wall and wait. If someone speaks to you, you answer only what is necessary. You are tools. Tools do not have personalities." I absorbed every word. It was exactly what I needed. Invisibility. Anonymity. A salary that would pay the rent for my tiny room in the suburbs and put food on the table. Nothing more. I hadn't come to the palace to be seen. I had come to survive. The first few weeks were a blur of endless corridors, cleaning products, and back pain. I worked from 6 in the morning to 6 at night, scrubbing floors, polishing mirrors, changing linens in rooms that were larger than my entire apartment. And I was good at it, good at disappearing, good at merging with the walls, good at keeping my eyes on the floor and my mouth shut while nobles passed by me as if I were part of the furniture. That's how I managed to last longer than most new hires. While other cleaners were fired for silly mistakes, lingering glances, or inappropriate comments, I remained silent, efficient, invisible. Until that afternoon, I was in the East Corridor, near the royal family's private chambers. It was a restricted area, usually reserved for trusted staff, but one of the senior cleaners had fallen ill, and I was assigned to cover her. The corridor was empty when I started polishing the marble console near the windows. The sun streamed in at golden angles, warming my skin as I worked. For a moment, I almost forgot where I was. Then I heard the footsteps. Many footsteps, heavy, coordinated, the sound of a retinue approaching. I turned to the wall immediately, just as I had been taught. eyes downcast, shoulders hunched, breathing controlled. A tool waiting to go unnoticed. The steps drew closer, and then they stopped. Right behind me. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could feel eyes on my back. I could hear muffled whispers. But I didn't move. I didn't dare move. Leave. The voice was deep, authoritative, accustomed to being obeyed. A voice I knew from official broadcasts, from the news, from the magazines that featured the ruler of Valeward's face. The king's voice. I heard the footsteps of the retinue retreating, doors closing, and then, absolute silence. He was still there. I felt his presence as a physical weight, a pressure in the air that made my skin tingle. Turn around. My heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at me to obey, but my body was paralyzed with fear. What had I done wrong? Was I in the wrong place? Had I made a mistake I hadn't even noticed? I won't repeat myself. I turned around, and for the first time, I looked into the eyes of Alpha King Zahir Moonstone. He was more impressive in person than in pictures. Tall, broad, with the rigid posture of someone raised to command. He wore a perfectly tailored dark suit, the kind of clothing that cost more than I earned in a year. His hair was black, short on the sides, slightly longer on top. And his eyes were brown, deep, intense, and they were fixed on me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "What is your name?" The question was simple, but my throat was too dry to answer. I swallowed, trying to find my voice. "Nina, Your Majesty. Nina Santos." He didn't react to the name. He just kept looking at me, his nostrils flaring slightly, his head tilting to the side like a predator studying prey. "You are Omega." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, and it carried a weight I didn't fully understand. "Yes, Your Majesty." Silence. Zahir took a step forward, then another. I should have backed away, but something held me in place. Perhaps fear. Perhaps something worse. He stopped less than 3 feet away. Too close. Close enough for me to feel the heat emanating from his body, to absorb the scent that surrounded him like an aura. Sandalwood, thunderstorm, and something metallic, almost sad, that I couldn't name. "Your scent," he said, his voice lower now, almost a whisper. "Why is your scent so—" He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and when he opened them again, they were no longer brown. They were gold, the liquid gold of the wolf taking control. My Omega instinct reacted before my mind could process it. A tremor ran through my body, my heart racing, my breath becoming shallow. I knew that look. I knew what it meant when an alpha looked at an Omega that way. Recognition, claiming. I should have run. "Starting tomorrow," Zahir said, his voice rough with what sounded like effort to control himself, "you will be transferred to my private chamber's staff." The words took a moment to sink in. "Your Majesty, I don't have the qualifications for—" "I am not asking." He turned and walked down the corridor without looking back. I stood there, my heart still pounding, his scent still trapped in my nostrils. Sandalwood, thunderstorm, loneliness, and something more. Something my wolf recognized, even if my mind refused to accept it. I should have fled right then. I should have packed my things and disappeared before it was too late. But I needed the job. I needed the money. And a part of me, a stupid and dangerous part, wanted to know why the Alpha King of Valeward had looked at an ordinary cleaner as if she were the most precious thing in the world. I didn't know that look would change everything. I didn't know that in a few weeks I would be in his arms, believing promises that would crumble like sand between my fingers. I didn't know I would flee carrying a secret that could destroy or save a kingdom. All I knew in that moment was that the king had seen me, and that being seen was the first step toward being destroyed. The transfer happened the next morning. I had barely slept. I spent the night tossing and turning on the thin mattress of my tiny room, trying to understand what had happened. The king noticed me. The king ordered my transfer. The king looked at me with liquid gold eyes, as if my scent were something precious. None of it made sense. Omegas like me didn't capture the attention of alphas like him. We were invisible by design, created to serve without being seen, to exist on the margins of society. And Zahir Moonstone was the alpha of alphas, the supreme ruler of Valeward, a man whose face graced magazine covers, and whose name was whispered with reverence in every corner of the kingdom. Men like him didn't look at women like me, except he had looked. The royal chambers were on the top floor of the main tower. I was escorted there by a senior staff member who cast curious glances at me every few steps, clearly trying to understand why a novice cleaner was being promoted so quickly. I wished I could explain, but I didn't understand it myself. Zahir's room was exactly as I imagined, and nothing like it at the same time. Spacious, minimalist, with straight-lined furniture and neutral colors. A massive bed dominated the center, covered in white Egyptian cotton sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, the skyscrapers gleaming under the morning sun. And at a desk in the corner, surrounded by documents and holographic screens, he was there. Zahir didn't look up when I entered. He continued reading something on a tablet, his brow furrowed in concentration. I took the moment to study him unnoticed. In the daylight, he looked different, more tired. There were shadows under his eyes that the official photos didn't show, a tension in his shoulders that suggested sleepless nights. The impeccable suit of the day before had been exchanged for a white linen shirt with the sleeves folded to the elbows. He looked almost human like this. Almost. "Are you going to stand there all day?" His voice startled me. I hadn't realized he'd looked up. "Sorry, Your Majesty. I was waiting for instructions." Zahir set the tablet aside and leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest. His gaze swept over my body from head to toe, not lustfully, but analytically, as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Your job is to keep these chambers clean and organized," he said. "You will work while I work. I do not want to be interrupted by unnecessary noise or movement. Understood?" "Yes, Your Majesty." I picked up the cleaning materials that had been left for me and began to work. And he returned to his documents. And so began our silent dance. Days turned into weeks. I arrived every morning, cleaned the chambers while Zahir worked, and left every night. We spoke little. He gave occasional orders. I obeyed without question. It was a simple, predictable routine. Except it wasn't, because I felt his eyes on me. Every time I bent down to clean something, every time I passed too close, I felt those brown eyes tracking my every move. He tried to hide it, pretending to be focused on his documents, but I knew the feeling of being watched. And his scent. Each day his scent seemed stronger, more present. Sandalwood and thunderstorm filling every corner of the room, infiltrating my clothes, my hair, my dreams. I woke up in my empty apartment still smelling that aroma, my body reacting in ways that embarrassed me. It was the bond. I knew what was happening, even if I refused to admit it. My wolf recognized his wolf. My omega called to his alpha with every breath, every heartbeat, every molecule of pheromone I couldn't control. But I couldn't give in. He was the king. I was the cleaner. Stories like ours didn't have happy endings. It was in the 5th week that everything changed. I was in the indoor garden during my lunch break, sitting on a stone bench hidden among the rose bushes. It was my secret spot, a forgotten corner where I could eat my sandwich in peace and pretend, for a few minutes, that I was a normal person with a normal life. Amir found me there. He was one of the palace guards, a gentle beta with an easy smile who had become my only friend in that place. We talked sometimes, about small things, about life outside the golden walls. He made me laugh, something that had become rare. "Hiding again?" he asked, sitting down beside me. "Trying to breathe," I replied. "That room suffocates me sometimes." Amir nodded, understanding. It must be hard working so close to him. The weight of an alpha's presence like that. "You have no idea." He said something funny about one of the nobles who had tripped earlier. I laughed, a genuine laugh that echoed through the garden, and then I felt it. A wave of raw, furious energy that made the hairs on my arm stand up. I turned instinctively, my body recognizing the source before my eyes confirmed it. Zahir was on the balcony overlooking the garden. Even at a distance, I could see. His eyes were no longer brown. They were pure gold, glowing with an intensity that chilled my blood. His hands gripped the stone railing hard enough to leave marks. And the expression on his face, I had never seen so much fury. Amir stood up quickly, bowing his head in submission. Your Majesty, I didn't leave. The word was a growl, barely human. Amir didn't need to hear it twice. He practically ran away, leaving me alone with the king and his inexplicable anger. Zahir descended the terrace steps in long strides, every movement charged with a predatory energy that made my heart pound. I should have stood up. I should have bowed, apologized, done anything other than sit there like hypnotized prey. But I couldn't move. He stopped before me, so close that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, see the accelerated pulse in his neck, hear the heavy breathing he fought to control. What is he to you? The question came out clipped, every word loaded with a possessiveness that made no sense. He had no right to ask, no right to be jealous. I wasn't his, but my body disagreed. He is my friend, I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. Nothing more. Friend. Zahir spat the word like poison. Do you laugh like that with all your friends? Let them sit so close. Let them smell your scent. My scent? Indignation rose in my throat. I don't control my scent, Your Majesty. Just as I don't control who I talk to during my break. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. He took another step forward, cornering me against the stone bench. His body was a wall of muscle and heat, his scent completely enveloping me. You should control it, he growled. Because your scent has been driving me crazy for weeks. I smell you in every corner of my room, on every sheet you change, on every surface you touch. I can't sleep. I can't concentrate. I can't think of anything but... He stopped abruptly, as if he had said more than he intended. My breathing was shallow, my heart pounding so hard he surely could hear it. The rational part of me screamed to retreat, to remember who I was and who he was, not to give in to what was happening between us. But instinct was stronger. But what? I whispered. His eyes met mine. The gold had softened, still intense but less furious. What I saw now was something more vulnerable, more honest. Desire, confusion, need. You are mine. The words came out like a confession, a secret forcibly ripped out. And before I could react, his lips were on mine. The kiss was not gentle. It was desperate, hungry. Years of loneliness poured into a single moment. His hands held my face as if I were made of glass and steel at the same time. My fingers clung to his shirt, pulling him closer, unable to resist the gravity that bound us. I knew it was wrong. I knew this could only end in tragedy. But when he kissed me, when his scent enveloped me and his heat consumed me, I couldn't care about the consequences. I was his, and for that moment, he was mine. That night changed everything. After the kiss in the garden, Zahir led me to his chambers. Not with words, but with looks and touches that said more than any speech could express. His hands held mine as if he feared I would disappear, as if I were a dream he didn't want to wake up from. And I followed him. I followed because my body knew no other way. I followed because every cell in me screamed for him, called for him, needed him in ways that transcended reason. The bond between us was an invisible rope, and that night, we finally stopped resisting its force. The chambers were bathed in the golden light of sunset when we entered. Zahir closed the door behind us and turned to me, those liquid gold eyes studying me as if I were the most precious work of art in the world. If you want to leave, he said, his voice husky with restraint, it's now. Because if you stay, I won't be able to stop. I should have gone. I should have listened to the voice of reason that whispered about class differences, about scandal, about all the ways this could destroy my life. But when I looked at him, when I saw the vulnerability hidden beneath the mask of power, I knew I couldn't leave. I'm staying. The words had barely left my lips when he kissed me again. What happened next was like diving into an ocean of sensations. His hands undressing me with reverence, his mouth tracing paths of fire across my skin, his body molding to mine as if we had been created to fit together this way. The silk sheets were clouds beneath my back, and above me, Zahir was everything. He was gentle where I expected force, careful where I expected urgency. Every touch was a question, every kiss a promise, and when we finally became one, When I felt the bond solidify between us like golden chains, I cried. Not from pain, from fulfillment. Afterward, lying in the tangle of sheets, he traced invisible patterns on my skin while I listened to his heart slow down. "I've never felt anything like this," he murmured against my hair. "I never knew it was possible to feel so much." I snuggled closer, absorbing his heat, his scent, the vibration of his voice in my ear. "What happens now? Now I take care of you." He kissed my forehead, as it always should have been. I believed him. Gods help me. I believed every word. I fell asleep in his arms feeling, for the first time in my life, completely safe, completely loved, completely at home. I woke up alone. The morning sun streamed through the enormous windows, painting the room in rosy hues. I stretched slowly, my body deliciously sore, a smile on my lips as I reached out to the side where Zahir should have been. Cold sheets. He had gone. It wasn't strange, I told myself. He was the king. He had obligations, meetings, a kingdom to rule. He couldn't spend the morning in bed just because we had... I sat up, pulling the sheet to cover my naked body. That's when I saw it. An envelope on his bedside table. Large, elegant, with the royal seal in gold wax. It was slightly ajar, as if someone had hastily checked the contents before leaving. I shouldn't have looked. It was none of my business. Whatever it was, it didn't belong to me. I was just a cleaner who had spent the night with the king. I had no right to his secrets, his documents, his real life. But something pulled me toward that envelope. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind used for important occasions. And when I read the words printed in gold ink, my world collapsed. Official invitation to the engagement celebration of His Majesty, King Zahir Moonstone, and Lady Alara Vance. The date was 3 months ago. 3 months before I stepped foot in that palace. 3 months before he saw me in the corridor. 3 months before all those looks. That kiss in the garden. That night. He was engaged. From the beginning, he was engaged. I couldn't breathe. The air had become thick, poisonous, impossible to pull into my lungs. My hands dropped the envelope as if the paper burned, and I backed up until I hit the wall. Everything made sense now. The secrecy, the urgency, the fact that he never introduced me to anyone, never talked about a future together, never promised anything beyond, "I'll take care of you." I was the mistress, the secret pastime before he took on his royal responsibilities, and I had been foolish enough to believe I was more. The sound of the shower reached me. He was in the bathroom. In minutes, he would come out and find me there, and I would have to look into the eyes of the man who had used me and pretend I wasn't falling apart inside. No, I couldn't do that. My hands found my clothes scattered on the floor. I dressed with frantic movements, not caring if I was wrinkled, if my hair was a mess, if anyone who saw me would know exactly where I was coming from. I needed to leave. The door closed behind me seconds before I heard the sound of the shower stopping. I ran through the palace corridors without looking back. I passed guards, staff, faces I knew, and faces I didn't. No one tried to stop me. Perhaps they saw something in my face that held them back. Despair. Betrayal. A heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. I grabbed my things from the locker room in less than 2 minutes. The bag with my few belongings. The money I had saved in the last few weeks. The documents that proved I existed. It wasn't much, but it was enough to disappear. The sun was high when I walked out the service gates. The city stretched out before me, a labyrinth of concrete and glass. Millions of people living their lives unaware that mine had just been devastated. I didn't look back. If I had looked, perhaps I would have seen the figure in the tower's highest window. Perhaps I would have seen Zahir standing there, wrapped in a towel, looking at the empty room with an expression of mounting panic. Perhaps I would have seen when he started screaming my name. But I didn't look. I just ran. The following weeks were a blur of cheap rooms and temporary jobs. I used every cent I had to go as far as possible from Valeward, changing cities 3 times until I was sure no one could find me. And then I found out. I was in the bathroom of a cheap boarding house when the test confirmed what my body already knew. 2 pink lines. Impossible to ignore. Impossible to deny. I was pregnant. with the king's child. My first instinct was panic. Pure, cold, paralyzing. How would I raise a child alone? How would I survive? What would happen when the baby was born with golden eyes and the whole world knew whose son he was? But then I felt it. A hand on my belly, still flat, and under my fingers, a sensation. Not physical, not yet, but real. A presence. Small, fragile, completely dependent on me. And all the fear turned into determination. I would protect that child. No matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. Zahir would never know. The world would never know. My child would grow up loved, safe, far from the clutches of politics and power. It was the least I could do. In the following weeks, I discovered it wasn't one child. It was two. Twins. The doctor at the free clinic showed me the ultrasound image with a gentle smile. Two pulsating dots. Two hearts beating in sync. Two lives growing inside me. I cried. Not from fear. From love. From an absolute certainty that, however difficult the road ahead, I was not alone. I had my children. And for them, I would be strong. The months of pregnancy were the hardest of my life. I worked until the last possible moment. First as a cleaner in a cheap hotel, then as a cashier in a roadside diner. I saved every penny, preparing for the moment I could no longer work. Ayan was born first. He came into the world screaming, furious at the indignity of being evicted from the comfort of the womb. Isaac followed 2 minutes later, quiet and observant, eyes open from the very first moment. And those eyes, golden, identical to his father's. I held them against my chest, crying from exhaustion and joy, while the nurse looked at me curiously. She didn't say anything. Perhaps she didn't know. Perhaps she didn't care. But I knew. I knew that one day, those eyes would be my sentence, or my salvation. For now, they were just my children, and I loved them more than anything in the world. 2.5 years passed. I had built a life on the margins of the kingdom, in a small coastal town forgotten by official maps. A small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building without an elevator. 2 jobs, one in the morning as a kitchen assistant in a bakery, another at night as a clerk in a neighborhood market. Stolen hours of sleep, muscles that never stopped aching, and 2 boys who made it all worthwhile. Ayan was fire. He ran around the house like a little hurricane, knocking things over, climbing furniture, testing my limits every second. His smile was wide as the horizon, and his laughter was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Isaac was water, quiet, observant, with eyes that seemed to see much more than a 2-year-old should see. He spent hours flipping through the illustrated books I bought at thrift stores, small fingers tracing the images as if he could absorb the stories through his skin. Both had golden eyes. I kept them hidden as much as possible. Sunglasses when we went out, caps pulled over their brows. People found it strange, but no one asked questions. In that town of fishermen and retirees, everyone had too many secrets to worry about others. Life was difficult, but it was ours. I didn't know what was happening in Valeward. I avoided news about the royal family like I avoided poison. I didn't want to know about Zahir's marriage, about his perfect wife, about the heirs that would surely come. Every piece of information would be a knife twisting in wounds I was desperately trying to heal. But some news was impossible to avoid. I was at the market, stocking shelves during the night shift, when the television in the corner began broadcasting a breaking report. Attack on the king. My hands froze mid-movement. On the screen, shaky images showed the chaos. A royal motorcade attacked on an isolated road, vehicles in flames, bodies on the asphalt, and in the center of it all, being carried on a stretcher, the face I had been trying to forget for over 2 years. Zahir, covered in blood, motionless. My heart stopped. For an instant, I forgot everything. The betrayal, the escape, the lies. I forgot that he had used me, that I was just a pastime before the royal wedding. All that existed was the cold terror of seeing him like that, broken, possibly dead. My legs gave out. I leaned against the nearest shelf, breathing in short gasps, trying not to pass out as the reporter continued speaking. The king was shot with silver ammunition during the attack. He was rushed to the royal hospital, where he remains in critical condition. Authorities have not yet confirmed if his life is at risk. Silver, the only metal that could truly wound an alpha. The following weeks were torture. I followed the news obsessively, hiding my interest from everyone, checking for updates hourly like an addiction I couldn't control. Zahir survived, but the price was high. The bullet had hit his shoulder, millimeters above the heart. Doctors managed to remove it, but the silver had already spread through his system. And then came the announcement that made the entire kingdom hold its breath. King Zahir Moonstone was sterile. The royal lineage would end with him. I turned off the television and cried. I cried for him, for the man who had hurt me, but who still occupied dark corners of my heart. I cried for the cruel irony of fate, which deprived him of heirs while 2 boys with his eyes grew up hidden from the world. I cried for my children, who would never know their father, who would never know where they came from. And I cried for myself, for loving someone who could never be mine. Months passed. Zahir recovered physically, but the images that appeared in the news showed a different man, thinner, paler, with eyes that seemed to have lost all their sparkle. And then came the announcement of the marriage. King Zahir Moonstone would marry Lady Alara Vance in a state ceremony. The union was purely political, commentators explained. A way to secure alliances, maintain stability, and give the people the illusion of continuity even without heirs. A loveless marriage, a king without hope. I should have felt satisfied. He had betrayed me, used me, discarded me. Now he was trapped in a golden prison, condemned to an empty life beside a woman he didn't love. But all I felt was sadness for both of us. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I was coming home from work, my feet aching, my mind already planning dinner for the children, when I saw the envelope in my mailbox. Thick paper, gold seal, my name written in elegant calligraphy. My heart stopped. For one insane moment, I thought he had found me, that somehow, after all this time, Zahir had discovered where I was, and had come for his children. But when I opened the envelope, I found only a formal invitation. A list of former palace staff was being invited to the wedding ceremony, a gesture of gratitude for services rendered. My name was still in the records, a bureaucratic error no one had corrected. I should have thrown it away. I should have torn up that paper and forgotten it existed. There was no reason to go, no benefit, just guaranteed pain. But I looked at my children playing in the living room. Ayan stacked blocks while Isaac watched with those golden eyes so much like his father's. They had never asked about their father. They were too young to understand. But one day they would ask. And what would I say? That their father was a king? That I had run away before giving him a chance to know them? That I had made this decision for them? Yes, but also for me. Out of fear? Out of wounded pride? Maybe he deserved to know. Not for me, not for us, but for them. The decision came slowly, forming like ice on a winter window. I would go to the wedding. I would stay in the shadows, invisible as I always was. I would let Zahir see the children from afar, just once, and then I would leave. He didn't need to know they were his. He didn't need to know anything. I just wanted closure, a chance to close that chapter once and for all. I bought new clothes for the boys, identical mini suits, navy blue with small gold ties. Ayan complained that it itched. Isaac studied his reflection in the mirror with solemn curiosity. I looked at myself in the mirror beside them, hair down for the first time in years. A simple but elegant dress. The eyes of the woman staring back at me were different from those of the cleaner who had entered the palace 3 years ago. Harder, wiser, more tired, but also stronger. We're going to see a special place, I told the boys. You need to behave very well, okay? Ayan nodded excitedly. Isaac just looked at me with those eyes that saw too much. And we set off for Valeward, for the wedding of the man I still loved, for the destiny I could no longer avoid. The Valeward Palace was even more impressive than I remembered. Gold flags fluttered from every tower. White flowers decorated every arch, every column, every available surface. The crowd stretched through the gardens in waves of silk and jewels, nobles and diplomats and celebrities, competing to see who shone brightest. And at the center of it all, the great hall awaited. I held the boys' hands tightly as we approached through the side gates. Former staff did not enter through the main door. We were guests by courtesy, not by importance. Ghosts of the past allowed to witness the future. It was exactly what I needed. Invisibility. "Mommy, too tight," Ayan complained, trying to pull his fingers free. "Sorry, sweetheart." I loosened my grip, but didn't let go. "Remember what I said. You stay quiet, don't leave my side, and then we'll leave, okay?" Isaac nodded with that seriousness that made me forget he was only 2 years old. Ayan was already distracted, looking at the chocolate fountains at the entrance with wide eyes. We entered. The great hall was a cathedral of light and opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, projecting rainbows onto every surface. Hundreds of guests occupied rows of gilded chairs, all facing the altar in the back, where an arch of white roses framed the space reserved for the bride and groom. The ceremony had already begun. My heart raced when I saw the figures at the altar. Lady Alara had her back to me, a wedding dress that looked like it was made of moonlight cascading behind her. She was tall, elegant, exactly the kind of woman who belonged beside a king. And next to her, facing the crowd, Zahir. My breath caught. He was different, thinner than I remembered. The shoulders that once seemed to carry the world now slumped under an invisible weight. The suit was impeccable, but it couldn't hide the pallor of his skin, the shadows under his eyes, the stiffness of someone fulfilling a duty, not celebrating a joy. He looked like a man going to his own execution. I should have felt satisfaction. This was what he deserved, wasn't it? An empty life with a woman he didn't love, a kingdom without heirs, a hopeless future. But all I felt was a deep, oceanic sadness. The man at the altar was not the arrogant king who had cornered me in the garden. He was not the passionate lover who had whispered promises in my ear. He was a shell, a ghost wearing Zahir Moonstone's skin. And a part of me, that stupid part that refused to die, wanted to run to him and bring back the man I knew. "Mommy, there are too many people." Isaac's voice brought me back. He squeezed my hand tighter, his little golden eyes scanning the crowd with discomfort. "I know, honey. We'll stay back here, okay? Just for a little while." I found a discreet corner near the side doors, partially hidden by a marble column. From there, I could see the altar without being seen. It was perfect. Or it should have been. The priest continued the ceremony, ancient words about union and duty echoing through the hall. I barely listened. My eyes were fixed on Zahir, studying every micro-expression, every small movement. He wasn't looking at Alara. He wasn't looking at the priest. His eyes swept the crowd in a repetitive pattern, as if searching for something, or someone. The priest's voice rose. "His Majesty King Zahir Moonstone, do you accept Lady Alara Vance as your wife and queen, to rule by your side until death do you part?" Silence. The entire hall held its breath. 1,000 eyes fixed on the king, waiting for the word that would seal the fate of the kingdom. Zahir opened his mouth, and then his eyes met mine. I saw the exact moment of recognition, the way his entire body stiffened, how his breath caught, how the color fled his already pale face. His lips formed a silent word, my name, but he wasn't looking only at me. He was looking down, at the 2 small figures holding my hands, at 2 boys with dark hair and golden eyes identical to his own. The world stopped. I could feel the aura of my children, that pure alpha energy they had inherited from their father, radiating like beacons in the dark. Normally it was subtle, almost imperceptible. But now, in the presence of their biological father, it seemed to have amplified 1,000-fold. And Zahir felt it. I saw when the realization hit him. I saw when the pieces clicked into place in his mind, when the impossibility of what he saw collided with the absolute certainty of what his instinct told him. His eyes changed, brown to gold, dead to alive. "Zahir!" Alara's voice was confused, irritated. "Zahir, the priest is waiting." He didn't answer. He was moving. He descended the altar steps like a man in a trance. 1 step, 2, 3. The crowd murmured, heads turning, press cameras frantically clicking. Lady Alara called his name again, but he didn't stop. He didn't look back. His eyes were fixed on us. I should have run. I should have grabbed the boys and fled before he reached us. But my legs wouldn't obey. I was paralyzed, caught in that golden gaze that approached like an inevitable storm. The crowd parted before him. Nobles backing away, guards hesitating, no one daring to stop the king in his determined march. He stopped before us. So close I could feel the heat radiating from his body. So close I could see the tears starting to form in his golden eyes. So close I could hear his shaky, broken breath. For a moment, no one spoke. And then Zahir fell to his knees. The Alpha King of Valeward, the most powerful man in the kingdom, dropped to his knees on the marble floor, before two 2-year-old boys. "Daddy?" Ayan asked, tilting his head with innocent curiosity. I didn't know how he knew. Instinct, perhaps. The blood bond recognizing its other half. Or maybe just the simple logic of a child seeing a man kneeling before him. Zahir choked back a sob. The sound was devastating. A man who had forgotten how to cry, relearning in that instant. His hands trembled as he raised them, hesitating inches from Ayan's face, as if afraid that the touch would make everything disappear. "May I?" His voice was a thread. "May I touch him?" The question was for me. I nodded, unable to speak. Zahir's fingers touched Ayan's cheek. The boy didn't flinch. He just stood there, studying his father's face with that intensity only small children possess. "Your face is sad," Ayan said. "Mommy gets sad sometimes too." A sob escaped Zahir. Then another. And then he was truly crying, tears streaming down his face as his other hand found Isaac, touching the dark hair of the quieter boy. "Are they?" He lifted his eyes to mine, and what I saw there broke me. Hope, desperation, terror, joy, all mixed into an expression that had no name. "Nina, are they yours?" The word came out as a whisper. They always were yours. The silence in the hall was absolute. 1,000 people watching, cameras broadcasting live to millions more. The scandal of the century unfolding before their eyes. The bride abandoned at the altar. The king kneeling before an unknown woman and 2 impossible children. And Zahir didn't care. He rose in a fluid movement, his eyes never leaving mine. And then, before the entire kingdom, before the cameras and the nobles, and the woman who should have been his wife, he did something no one expected. He kissed me. It was not gentle. It was desperate, hungry, years of loneliness poured into a single moment. His hands held my face as if I might vanish at any instant, his lips moving against mine with an urgency that stole my breath. And then he pulled away. He turned to the shocked crowd. "The wedding is cancelled." His voice echoed through the hall, firm and clear, without a trace of hesitation. "My queen has already arrived." The chaos that followed was instantaneous. Screams, questions, camera flashes. Lady Alara descending from the altar with a furious expression, guards trying to restrain the crowd, reporters shouting for statements. But Zahir ignored everything. He bent down and picked up Ayan in his arms with a naturalness that made my heart clench. The boy laughed, gripping the lapel of his father's suit with small fingers. Isaac held up his arms, silently asking for the same treatment. Zahir looked at me. "Help me," he said. "I only have 2 arms." And despite everything, despite the confusion and the fear and the 1,000 eyes upon us, I laughed. I picked Isaac up. He snuggled against my neck, a sigh of contentment escaping his lips. Zahir extended his free hand to me. "Come," he said. "We have a lot to talk about, and I won't do it in front of cameras." I hesitated. 1,000 questions bubbled in my mind. 1,000 fears, 1,000 doubts, 1,000 reasons why this couldn't work. But when I looked at Ayan in his father's arms, when I saw the smile on my son's face, when I felt Zahir's hand waiting for mine, I took it, and together, carrying our children, we crossed the hall toward a future none of us dared to imagine. The private room was in the heart of the palace. Zahir guided us through the corridors like a man on a mission, ignoring the guards who tried to speak to him, the counselors who ran after him asking for explanations, the chaos we had left in the great hall. Ayan was still in his arms, playing with the buttons on his father's suit. Isaac slept against my shoulder, exhausted by the confusion. When the door closed behind us, the silence was almost deafening. Zahir gently put Ayan down. The boy immediately ran to explore the office, touching the bookshelves, the antique globes, everything that shone. I laid Isaac on a velvet sofa, covering him with my coat, and then we were alone, face to face. 3 years of silence between us. How? The word came out strangled from Zahir's throat. The doctors said, after the attack, they said it was impossible, that the silver had destroyed any chance of they were conceived before. My voice was firmer than I expected. Before the attack, before everything. Understanding crossed his face. Then horror. You were pregnant when you ran away? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Zahir stumbled backward as if he had been punched. His hands gripped the edge of the desk behind him, his knuckles white with tension. Why? His voice was a broken whisper. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you run away? I would have done anything, given everything. You didn't have to. I saw the engagement invitation. Silence. On your table. The next morning. Dated 3 months prior. The pain I had held onto finally found its voice. You were engaged when you seduced me, Zahir. I was just the secret mistress before the royal wedding. No. He crossed the distance between us in 2 steps. No, Nina. You were never... The engagement was an arrangement by the counselors. I never wanted Alara. I never wanted anyone but you. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I was going to cancel it. Frustration exploded in his voice. That morning when I got out of the shower, I was going to tell you everything. I was going to say that you were my true mate, that the engagement would be broken, that nothing else mattered but us. But you had vanished. My legs weakened. I leaned on the nearest armchair. I looked for you for months. Zahir continued, approaching slowly. I sent every tracker I had. I searched every city, every village. No one found you. It was as if you had evaporated. I had hidden well. Changes of city, false names, jobs in places no one would look. And then came the attack. His voice dropped lower. The bullet, the silver, the diagnosis. He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. When the doctors said I was sterile, that the Moonstone lineage would die with me, the only thing I could think of was you, that I had lost the only woman I ever loved and any chance of having a family with her. Tears streamed down my face. I hadn't realized I was crying. I accepted the marriage to Alara because I didn't care anymore. Zahir stopped before me, so close I could see every detail of his face. Without you, without the possibility of children, nothing made sense. I was just existing, waiting for it to end. Zahir, and then you walked into that hall. He knelt before me, taking my hands, with 2 miracles holding your hands, 2 sons who shouldn't exist, 2 boys with my eyes, my aura, my blood. He pressed my fingers to his lips. They are impossible, Nina. Science says they shouldn't exist. But they are there. He looked at Ayan, who had found a globe and was spinning it, fascinated. Alive, real, mine, ours, I corrected softly. He smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen on him since that night 3 years ago. Ours. He squeezed my hands. Forgive me, Nina, for not being clear, for letting you believe you were less than you were, for every day you spent alone, raising our children, working yourself to exhaustion, with no one to help. It was 2.5 very difficult years, I admitted. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. He brought my hands to his heart. If you let me, if you give me a second chance to be the man you deserve. I looked at him, at the king kneeling at my feet like a supplicant, at the father who had recognized his children at first sight, at the man who had canceled a royal wedding in front of millions of witnesses for me. It will take time, I said. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day. I have time. He pressed a kiss to my knuckles. I have the rest of our lives. 6 months later, I was in the palace garden, the same garden where he had first kissed me, the same stone bench where our story had truly begun. But now everything was different. Ayan ran among the rose bushes, chased by 2 guards who looked more exhausted than he was. Isaac sat beside me, flipping through a picture book about stars. And Zahir was kneeling before me. Again, But this time it wasn't to beg forgiveness. His hands were on my belly, rounded, growing. Impossible. The doctors still don't believe it, he murmured against my skin. They say it's a miracle, that the silver should have made this impossible forever. I ran my fingers through his hair. The bond is stronger than silver, I said. Stronger than science. Stronger than anything that tried to tear us apart. He lifted his eyes to me. Golden. Alive. Full of a joy I never thought I'd see. 3 children, he said. 3 reasons to live forever. I smiled. 4, actually. They're twins. The shock on his face was priceless. Then came the laughter, loud and genuine, echoing through the garden. Ayan ran up to us, wanting to know what was so funny. Isaac looked up from his book with serene curiosity. And I stood there, surrounded by the family I never thought I'd have, by the love I almost let slip away. I ran away to protect my heart, but I ended up protecting the future of the kingdom. The Alpha King thought his legacy was over, but I gave him 4 reasons to live forever. Thank you for being here and for joining me for another story. I truly hope you enjoyed it. If you want, leave your comment. I love reading what you feel and think after each episode. Thank you for the love, and see you in the next story.